Well, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we could talk about that.
Well, Kyrie posted it.
Yes.
Kyrie, for people, obviously, you don't know, probably.
Kyrie
posted.
Yeah, put Chelsea up here with it. Have her chat with us. We thought it was just me and Caleb today. You could come chat with us, Chelsea. You pick whatever side you want, Chelsea. This is your world. This is your world.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, it was good.
Welcome, everybody, to Beyond the Letter podcast
Yes.
with People's Padre. We're in the house.
Name for the ladies.
Chelsea's
Well, I just want to
jumping in with
start.
us.
I want to start because I did get this shirt for nothing.
What
This
is
cool
this?
shirt I have on.
For those watching on YouTube or not watching on YouTube, Caleb's got Drew Barrymore kissing the nose of E.T.
Because the Congress is talking about aliens, which I don't really care about, but it's going around. Everybody's talking about it, and I guess this is the first time that Congress has give credence to aliens existing. See, the fact that you're not aware of this shows how crazy it is that our government is saying aliens exist and nobody cares about it.
No,
That's hilarious.
I have questions about your shirt,
Oh,
not
okay.
the.
Okay, so anyways.
Well, here's the other side, though. People
gotta add this.
your tinfoil.
So
Oh my God.
it's my 10 foreskin hat that
Caleb
protects me from the lies.
Caleb just put on, for those listening to the podcast, Caleb just put on literally a tinfoil. He has foil that he made into a hat
That's my bit.
that he just put on for a beanie. I think it's great. You've always been a tinfoil guy. So
What does that
I think
mean?
tinfoil hat people are like people who explore, discover conspiracy theories. And not necessarily always believe them, but hold weight and credence to them. So whether
Definitely.
It's because
you-
we don't trust authority. It boils down to we don't trust authorities. And so when the government tells us something, we know it's a lie. And there's a deeper truth that they want to hide from us. And the tinfoil started with aliens because the tinfoil, if you've seen the movie Signs, the tinfoil protects from alien mind control. And so this protects my mind from the mind control of the synagogue of Satan. The synagogue of Satan can't get to me.
So let me ask you then, since we're on it, regarding Congress, which I've seen the interviews and everything like that. There's the flip side of people who are even still in the tinfoil society who always believe things like that become distractions for something really practical and palpable that's happening in the world. So I think they're also saying Sam Bankman-Fried right now is in trial. Last time when Ghislaine Maxwell was on trial, there was some other, it was either extraterrestrial rocket that was found. Something else ended up hitting the news, and then when you had some other stuff going on, and then the Ukraine thing happened. So there's always this other tinfoil side that believes that anytime the news puts focus on something, more than likely there's something behind the scenes that deserves news that's really happening.
That they're trying to hide.
So where are you at with that right now? Do you think the Congress alien thing is a legitimate interview right now? Or do you think that it's potentially, just causing attention for something really real world-ish that's happening right now?
A distraction. I think it's a distraction because Congress is telling us that it's true, so it's probably not. I think it's, so.
Or the guy in Congress is telling it, right?
Yeah, but even but
I don't know much.
All the major news agencies are confirming it, and they're backing it, and the Pentagon is backing it. So
and they tend to
yeah. So I think it's a distraction.
When stuff is true, they tend to try to act like
you also have
something's
Africa.
not true. Yeah.
You also have Africa allying with Russia right now economically. That's a pretty big deal. Look at.
And a lot of countries
the economies of the world is the biggest.
They're walking away from the U.S.
right
dollar
now.
as the main trade route too.
Yeah.
So what a lot of people don't know is
What does that look like for the future of us then?
So here's what it looks like practically in country to country. Let's just say I'm a country in Europe and I go to do business in Africa, right? We're buying something. We're buying some type of rock material, anything like that, limestone or something that we're going to use for batteries, whatever, right? Then what happens is you have the Africans, each country has their money, and then that country has their money. So it's agreed that, okay, we will, in the process of the trade, we will all translate our money into dollars and we'll trade dollars. But what that means historically for that country is it doesn't actually, it can help your economy in the long run in the size of what you're doing, but it doesn't help strengthen the dollar of your economy because you're trading it in another countries.
Yeah.
So what a lot of countries are doing is they're saying, they're coming to agreements to say, no, we'll trade it in your guys' money, or vice versa, or let's do it.
What does that benefit them, though?
Benefit who?
Like the countries who are using our dollar to trade.
It doesn't benefit them in
doesn't,
any way. It benefits the U.S.
Got you.
So since we're a world, we are the number one world power, and then you also have the euro involved too, and that does some trade also. But what that does is that strengthens our dollar, strengthens our economy, because you're transferring your money and our money, which we print
as you were saying that,
that comes out of us.
Does nothing for them.
Exactly. But because there's so much boundaries and trade restrictions and this and that, but countries are kind of getting fed up with that and saying, well, no, we want to see wealth in our country, and so we want to actually start strengthening our dollar. Like, we don't want, in some of those African countries, like if I go to South Africa, our $1 is 1,000 of their dollars, so you literally got to divide it by 10 to get the price of something in our US dollar. So they want to strengthen that, they want to come up to the level of the euro and the pound and the Chinese dollar,
also
the yen and stuff like that. Yeah.
The central bank currency, which is backed by the petrodollar, which is the oil dollar, has been controlled by America for the past 60, 70 years or so. And for the first time in modern history, current history, we're no longer the top dog. So Russia, China, and the Middle East, and now Africa is joining, India is joining with them. They're making an alliance to where their currency is now going to be the top dog. So what that means for America is we're no longer going to be the top dog in regards to currency, and we've leveraged that power in countries like Africa in order to force them to adopt our agenda. And that's the biggest pushback. Africa is pushing back against us because we basically become bullies in the sense that we're like, okay, the only way you can have our resources is if you adopt the LGBTQ agenda, or if you do this, or if you do this. And they're saying, no, that goes against our core values. And so we're not going to do that. And Russia comes along and is like, okay, well, we're going to be kinder to you than America. So here's what we're going to offer you. We're going to offer you grain and resources and agriculture, and we're not going to force you to. We're not going to inject our ideology into your country. You can live however you want to live, and so that's been a big selling point.
Got it.
Why they're aligning right now.
Yeah, so
which is a big deal.
So
which
going
is
back,
going to
you got
affect
Congress.
the future.
Yeah, I mean, it's not good for America. I mean, it's, but it's the reality of what's like. We're not being responsible in terms of our government officials. So what's going to come of it, unfortunately, is going to come of it unless we change things. But going back, so Congress, aliens, you think it's a little more of a distraction than anything?
I think it's a distraction, because they're liars, and so I don't believe anything that they say. It's a great observation was pointed out when they told us there was weapons of mass destruction. It was a phony narrative that we couldn't see. That was a threat that led to horrible
post
control
9/11.
and
for the Gen Zs that listen to us and don't know.
Yeah,
it's after 9/11.
It was a power move. Basically, it was a lie built upon a boogeyman that didn't exist in order for them to have power over the people.
Area. Yeah, the region.
Well, and over our minds, over our psyche, to get us to buy into a war. And you had a similar thing with COVID. It was a legitimate virus, but it wasn't as blown out, as big as they said it was, and it didn't require all the extreme steps that they did.
And there were alternative things that you could do to fight it that weren't being shared. Right.
So it's to instill fear. It's a distraction. And another point of view says that it's going to be used to fake like an otherworldly invasion that they're going to use in order to create more control of the money, the control of the people, shut down, whatever. But there's definitely a purpose behind everything that they do. Is not for nothing. And so just be discerning, like, okay, well, they're lying to me. probably, again, and they're trying to make me afraid of something. So how are they trying to control my mind? Is basically what I think.
Second question: will you wear the tinfoil hat this whole episode?
The whole episode,
because it's going to be tough.
It's a reminder.
It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to take your opinion serious. I think if anything goes on an Instagram reel,
side profile.
It's a visual illustration. I am immune to the devil's lies. And that's the thing about the devil, though. That's the thing about the devil is, he is the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
Don't look at the man behind the curtain. He makes himself to appear bigger than he is, and he's a giant fake and a phony.
Yeah.
And
this is going on the podcast and my Instagram.
Don't let him control your mind.
Show him your side profile.
You know,
Okay,
you know what's the hardest thing to say to the devil? Like, seriously?
Yeah.
The hardest thing that I've come across
What?
in my years of fighting him is this is what I say now. Because the devil's greatest power is lying.
Mm-hmm.
He
the
operates
father
in
of
the
lies.
lies.
The father of lies.
Father of lies. So I say, I see you.
That was it. I see you.
Because he operates in the shadows. He has success when he
Yeah.
operates in the shadows.
How often are you having these conversations with the devil?
A
That's just
lot.
what I
Daily
okay.
for Caleb.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I see you.
I see you. That goes hard though. Like if you're really in the midst of a battle,
For sure.
I
That's
see
like
you.
what-
And then I add a curse word usually, but that's not for the public consumption. I see you, you son of a.
That's what I do. So it helps. Whatever helps you fight. What's the avatar saying? What because they're saying is I see you. What does anyone know what the it's in their language? In the movie Avatar, that's the greeting is
I
I
should
see
know
you.
this. 'Cause
It's
that was my family's movie.
It's
I don't know. Do you know, Gabe?
I feel like that's a little more of like a Native American thing than anything. 'Cause I'm pretty sure Avatar. Well,
What is the Avatar
Avatar's
saying?
based on
Yeah, it's
Native
based on
Americans.
Native Americans.
It's based
see you.
on the American capitalism against indigenous people, in some way, shape, or form. Here's the in your thought, Caleb's hat is throwing me off like crazy. If anyone's listening to the audio of this, like you just gotta go. I'm sure the team will put it on Instagram or picture or something like that.
We have to.
Laura's in here taking
Yes.
pictures, so it'll be on there. But here's the other news. We've talked about this before, but I was recently at a thing, like a conference thing, and I was with a small group of pastors, and I started getting into post-millennialism, which we've talked about a little before, and not to go too theologically, dorky, because I saw our last TikTok of that the team put with the little boy who's doing the little Nemo thing, because we're talking over people's heads.
Yes.
But I proposed, like a thought of like, what if just our language got better about talking about the church getting better, like God, the bride getting better and better.
You feel like we're talking over people's heads when we talk about?
No, I don't think so.
Eschatology?
I think everybody's very smart. I just don't want anyone to tune out when we talk about it.
Okay.
Listen to this; it's important. It's like
pretty
me
much-
trying to get my son's attention.
My favorite
It's like,
part
as
of
long as I'm not talking about,
is a troll move to the premillennials who are all obsessed with the rapture.
For
and
sure.
premillennialism.
He's coming back tomorrow, which he could come back at any time. Or he could come back when we have fulfilled our mission and mandate, which is to preach the gospel and establish the church, the bride of Christ, to be pure bride. So what I was telling them was like, what if we don't know the date or time that he's coming, but what if he's coming when the bride is pure? Like as we get better and better at evangelism, as the church gets better and better, then Christ says they have done their job, not the individuals, but the body and the church.
Because that's what Revelations
is all
I've
about.
never understood that verse, and I think it's Colossians where it says that the church may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. Like,
Correct.
What does that mean? Does that just mean like when we're all in heaven, or does that actually happen on earth?
Is that possible?
That's the thing. Like that's the
question. But
that's what
regardless,
postmillennialism states is that the church will progressively get to a state of eventually perfection.
Yeah.
And that could be 20,000 years from now.
and a 100% success rate in conversion. That's basically it, right? That's what it'll get to. But here's the thing, because when I'm a group of pastors, we're talking about it, there's some rebuttals happening, and I'm saying, here's the thing, though. Even in a premillennial thought, there is still the future of the free will person that has where the church is perfected, because in their case, you have the rapture, 7-year tribulation. Jesus comes back, establishes 1,000-year reign.
Yeah.
Those that were existing during the tribulation period that made it through, that now call Christ Lord, but are still human. They're not us
During
yet.
that 7 years.
During that 7 years. And they make it through. It says they will have children, and it'll be 1,000 years, right? A peace, and he brings peace.
Yeah.
So that is still perfection. And you've reached it with your human will at that moment, right? Because now Christ has been fulfilled in you, and you see him face to face, and by the power of the Spirit in that moment in our life. And so you think, so regardless, because the premillennial is like, well, how can the church reach perfection? It's like, well, we both believe it's going to reach perfection. I just processing, can it happen upon his return, before his return? That is the challenge, right? That we get better. And that's a huge amount more optimism for my children and my children's children, that like this gets better for them. And the more I put into my faith and the church in pursuing Christ and fighting the gratifications of my sin, the more it'll deposit into the next generation. And to Caleb's point, he's made a couple times before in the podcast, is, if Catholicism was the first 1,500 years of Christianity, or after 300 years, however anyone wants to view it, or first 1,200 years, then we're 500 years in Protestant. Of like, what if there are like 6 more iterations of this to go that just gets better and better at, because like we know what we learned from Catholicism, we know what we benefit from Protestantism. What if there's a next wave of what that'll look like in 500 years? And the church gets better at what they're doing, and better at who they're reaching. And then I posed to that group, like, and what if AI has a part to play in that, in the sense of, as people begin to trust AI and believe it has legitimacy, well, I believe that AI will indisputably prove God. I think it's going to get to that point where that's going to happen, and the way that it's going to do that is through the intelligent design theory, and so what I think AI will be like, the more that we trust AI as a means for answers, rather than just our human, like it'll give you the truth, and it's going to make it much more harder for you to be an atheist, harder for you to be a skepticist. Now, I think someone on the other end be like, I think as AI grows, it's going to prove not God. I just don't believe that. I don't think anyone in true academia who's actually teaching molecular theory doesn't believe that there isn't some type of intelligent design.
But you also have a theory that demons are behind the AI, so the demons could like lie through it and say there is no God and stuff.
Well, that's where I'm presupposing like either the premillennial thought is everything is evil, pretty much,
connecting.
Right?
Oh yeah, I see.
So I'm just saying, if AI is part of God's plan, right? If AI is part of God's plan, because there's nothing that's out of God's plan, but is it out of God's plan for His glory, or is it out of God's plan for within allowing Satan to draw us away and be a father of lies?
Yeah.
I mean, that's where discernment comes. That's where we have to be in tune with the Spirit. But that's why I'm just encouraging people who listen, like, not everything. Well, I mean, we look at the beauty of instruments. When the electric guitar first came out, they said that was a satanic thing. It causes anger, and it's like, no, in the hands of a rock and roller who's doing heavy metal, and the lyrics they're talking about in their hands, it may be something demonic, but in Phil Wickham's hands is a beautiful piece of instrument that could be used for God's glory, right?
Well, even the Catholic Church thought the printing press was an agent of Satan,
for
because it would allow people to read the Bible for themselves, mass produce.
So I just say, like, objectively look at through the history that anything that new has come out, the church has been
not afraid of it
immediately
at all.
Gone like, oh, look, this is a new tactic of Satan. Oh, see, this will usher the great beast, and this is going to be part of. Now, maybe so. I am not never dogmatic where I'm like, no, 400. But I'm saying, well, what if this was part of God's plan? What if this was part of God's plan to give, in a level you have information that perfects us, right? Moves us towards perfection.
I could see that.
And gives us the answers, right?
Yeah, I could see that.
What if AI begins to analyze all religious text and then it ends up saying, no, Christianity is the most probable, right? Christianity is the one that, like, what if it begins to do that? And then now, I'm saying in post-millennial theory, because it's meant that the church is going to get better and we're going to get better at this. And more people are going to go to church in the future.
I don't know if I've interpreted your guys' thoughts correctly on it. Do you guys believe in post-millennialism and that the church is going to get better?
What I'm saying is I've been exploring the thought. You should, you're asking me to major on the minors.
Yeah,
and
for
way
sure.
too many people major on the minors.
Yeah.
So you're asking me what my belief is on something that happens in the
I hold
future.
it loosely.
You know,
yeah. I like playing with it. I like playing with it, imagining. And a lot of mine is from disillusionment. And this is from the greatest premillennial voices of the premillennialism as we know it is fairly new. It's about 100-year-old doctrine. Before that, nobody really believed in it. And postmillennialism was the belief of the founding of a lot of the Puritans, founding father Jonathan Edwards, a lot of people that founded
America
a lot
was
of the great
founded
institutions.
with post-millennial mindset.
Because America was called the city on a hill. It was supposed to be the beacon of light that all nations looked to convert to Christianity. And so it's an older philosophy than our current rapture left behind theology. And so I respect it for that. And I also, there's a lot of disillusionment because I grew up listening to the Hal Lindsays. I grew up listening to John Hagee's predictions and Perry Stone's. And I was a scholar of premillennialism. You'll never find somebody more saturated in that ideology than me. I am the expert in it. It's like, oh, let's have a premillennial expert and talk about, well, I kind of am that expert from the age of like 5. Okay. 7 years of higher education. Okay. I'm kind of the expert. Pastor. Okay. So I don't need to read a book. Sorry. Been there, done that. I kind of know it. So it's like, I knew all of the predictions, 2016, 2012, 2008, and I'm getting ready. I'm getting ready. I'm seeing old clothes in my parents' bedroom at 7 years old, having a traumatic experience, thinking that I'm left behind. I'm going to have my head chopped off. Okay, so I'm a little disillusioned. Okay, I have a little chip on my shoulder.
Left Behind series, the books, the CDs, the whole thing.
And so I believe, and you didn't, and you lied to me. Okay, so you know what?
You were wrong.
I'm going to need some proof now if I'm going to buy you again. But anyways, so now I'm just, okay, put that on the shelf. Let me play with these other thoughts and see if there's any
Now both eschatologies, really, besides amillennialism, but both eschatologies do create a fervor and hunger to preach the gospel. But what I've been, have uncovered is, if you are premillennial and you believe, the rapture is going to happen, we're going to go to heaven, and then 7-year tribulation, 1,000-year reign, that puts a mandate and responsibility to preach the gospel to the individual and then allow the individual to start their faith journey. But if you're post-millennial, it believes that it is your responsibility to preach the gospel to the individual and have them become part of the bride and make the bride better, because it will get better, the church. And for all intents and purposes, when you read the book of Acts and then you read what the church is meant to be, and then you read the book of Revelations, the church is meant to be in its glory, a perfected bride. And so you have to begin to ask yourself, like, at what point does the bride become perfected? Is it when Jesus brings us to heaven? But, theoretically, you're not really the church anymore, because the church is an earthly construct that the Lord has given us.
And I just can't see the church being, and this isn't my thought, the church being perfected before Jesus comes. It's just,
But why? What changes at that point?
What do you mean what changes at that point?
What changes when Jesus comes? Like, does your will change?
No.
Okay, so how can you not see it? Are you still sinning as much as you did when you met Jesus?
No.
We got to define perfection.
So you're being perfected, right?
I wouldn't say perfected.
Progressive sanctification.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would. Yeah.
Progressive sanctification. We're all Bible school students.
Yeah.
Progress.
Yes.
Progressive.
That's fair. No, that's fair.
Not just the individual. What if it's societal? What if it's within the church, within the bride, and the church that's what the Protestants believed. That's why they had a hunger to create seminaries. That's why Columbia University started out as a Christian seminary. That's why every other,
Princeton,
Yale, Princeton,
Harvard,
all of them.
Yeah.
Because
Cambridge.
they were all post-millennial. They believed education sector, the church,
Which
the
goes
business,
back to
it's
my
all
original
in one
question is-
for the glory of Christ. And
Yeah.
we're all part of that church, and we get better. And America will be the place where people will see that function and say, that's where we need to go. Now,
Yeah.
the world did do that. The world did do that for a certain era and degree until, and anyone could argue and say, well, what was the fracture and where did that fall off and where did that break off? But we know,
I have an idea.
Yeah.
I won't say it.
I have a few ideas, but that's where that's
Are
the
we seeing
possibility,
the
right?
church being perfected? That's where my question comes into.
But could the church still be in its infancy?
Could be. We don't know.
Right, you don't know anything.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know anything.
Yeah, we don't, yeah,
You
you're
know,
right.
like that. But that's where you got to explore it. That's where you got to play with it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to help
Yeah,
you,
for
Chelsea.
sure.
I'm trying to break you out of your box. I'm
I
trying to
am
help
in a box
you.
with it.
I'm trying to help you explore it.
Yeah.
I was just talking to Pastor Aaron about this. He was in the box. I
Yeah.
opened the lid for him.
Yeah, he's
I
10 minutes
definitely
into
am
Lord of the
about-
Rings.
yeah. Because I'm not saying you plant your flag, and for those that maybe be more old school, that is like super TBN-ish, like we're not telling you to challenge your values. Everything stays the same. The gospel stays the same.
Yeah.
Death,
Don't
burial,
abandon that.
You know, death, burial, resurrection stays the same. Jesus will return. That's post-millennial and premillennial. One just believes he does it after Jesus'
And one's
reign.
before,
One's
yeah.
before. So it's all consistent. It doesn't change anything except for here's what it does change. It changes your energy and what you view, both your involvement in the church and your legacy in the church. Those 100% do. And that is where I've evaluated the most. That is what I've questioned the most. Because if you fully uphold and you like jump in with premillennial theory, then what happens is you're going to say, drink today for tomorrow may never come. And I'm not saying that in a sinful way. I'm saying that in a irresponsible way, right? That's why I don't believe people are generous. That's why I believe people don't tithe, because it's like, well, why? Jesus could come any day. Let's use it for other things. But if I told you this church building could be here in 1,000 years, and it could be bigger, and there could be 50,000 people that come to this church, and your great grandchildren could be at this place, would you give to this thing? Yeah, I would, because I view. But the premillennial goes, why would I if he comes back in 50 years?
Yeah.
Comes back in 40 years.
Yeah.
To me, it teaches a level of irresponsibility. Now, here's
Legacy.
what
And a little selfishness.
Focus you on legacy.
Now, what premillennial does encourage you to do is put a rush towards evangelism. It's a great sign.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, how many Christians are receiving that rush?
But the motivation,
Not
though, is
many,
lacking,
though,
because it's like come to
evangelism?
Jesus, you're going to get your head chopped off, you're going to have 7-year
for sure.
tribulation.
Yeah,
it's like
yeah,
you're motivating it
It's a
by
fear. It's based out of a
It's a
fear.
fear
Yeah.
tactic.
Yeah.
And is that really the best way to evangelize?
Well, in the most unhealthiest way, but
yeah.
I'm just saying, like, what if premillennial was just as it is if it is your conviction and your wording is right, you're not fearing someone in the kingdom. You're just really still preaching the gospel. You're living the gospel. All those types of things like that. So you're doing it in the healthiest way. A premillennial person in the healthiest way is a great soul winner. But how many of them are actually doing it? Not many, not in a healthy way. But if I viewed it in the sense that my pursuit is not only, because we see this study, anyone could go look it up, go online, and what a team of historians did one time is they took Jonathan Edwards, who was a post-millennial, and he's the father of what seminary? Was it Yale or Princeton?
Yeah, Yale.
Or
It was Yale.
So he's the father. He's one of the great preachers of our time, part of the Great Awakening. And they took another guy that existed in his time who was a criminal. The guy was a thief. He spent a lot of time in prison.
Yes.
And they said, we're
Yeah.
going to trace
His family.
we're going to
That
trace
was powerful,
that guy's family tree, and then we're going to chase Jonathan Edwards' family tree.
Yeah.
Now, background-wise, religion-wise, same thing. Race, same race, right? The same kind of area, cities growing up, except for Jonathan Edwards, a preacher, teacher. And back then preachers were doctoral students. They had a whole doctorates and had seminary. So very brilliant guy. So they take him and then they trace the lineage. and within the thief's lineage, came out of him was like 13 prostitutes, 50 criminals, couple murderers. It's just like go through and you look at it a couple hundred years ago.
Yeah.
And then they took Jonathan Edwards and it was like 2 Supreme Court justices.
I got them right here if you want me to read them.
Yeah, read them for me, Gabe. Read them because I don't want to but that's the gist.
Yeah, Jonathan Edwards, 13 college presidents, 65 college professors, 75 military officers, 80 public servants, 60 authors, 60 doctors, 30 judges, 100 pastors, 100 lawyers, 3 U.S. senators, and a vice president. And then this other guy is 190 prostitutes, over 100 drunks, 7 murderers, and 150 criminals.
Wow.
So you look at that, and then
Your beliefs dictate your actions.
Your beliefs dictate your actions. There is generational things that attribute to things. And so what if I took the belief that my responsibility as a husband and father to sanctify and be involved in the local church, be involved in the kingdom of heaven, what would happen generationally upon multiple generations of blessing and relationship in the church? And then another study took that and saw how many of them are still Christian. And Jonathan Edwards, the great majority are still Christian to this day. Of that other guy, almost none identify as Christians of his lineage. And so, and Jonathan Edwards was a post-millennial guy. He believed there was a responsibility towards his legacy and towards his children. And to me, I'm just sharing that as an example of fruitfulness where his theology dictated his responsibilities. And people have to recognize that the what you view in your theology, and really just in your beliefs, but I'm going to say theology, what your beliefs are, your actions will dictate. So if you believe, if you're watching the news and you're like, he's coming back next week, well, then you're not going to pay off that mortgage. You're not going to put a savings for your children aside. You're not going to be part of something that's bigger than yourself, because you start to think yourself, let me get everything done that I need to before this world ends. Whether you're a Christian or not, because there's a lot of, because premillennial is right now the American ideology. So even people who aren't Christians still believe that the world is going to end any day, right? Yeah. They just view it in nuclear war and all this stuff. But that is a
global
Christian
warming.
That's a Christian premillennial thought. None of them know that. But in the past 100-something years, that has become the main focus. So whether you're a Christian or not, that has driven your values. It has driven your responsibilities. It has driven your views. But what if I chose to believe that there is a day where this gets much more beautiful, where we get better at what we're doing and we get stronger at what we're doing. And if we're not in our infancy, then yeah, you could look at the times we live in, you could look where the church is at, and you could be a little concerned. Or you can, Caleb has proposed before, like if we're 2,000 years into Christianity and there's still another 4,000 or 5,000 years to go, I mean, there's still a lot of time to grow, if the time from Adam was 10,000 years ago, or most mainline theologians don't believe in old earth theory, not even new earth theory. So new earth theory, so you go 10,000 years, or you go the world is 1 million, 2 million years old, right? It's from time of Adam and onwards, right? You just take in any of those theories, you think, well, in perspective, Paul always meant for all of us to believe that our action and value should be in light that Jesus will return at any moment. But he wasn't naive to the fact that, he knew that there were certain things that were going to happen and had to happen when that would come. And so he wanted you to be preparedness for his to return, but he also understood that he had believed it was going to happen in his lifetime. But when it didn't, it wasn't like, oh, all of a sudden that makes Christianity null and void. Well, look at the Apostle Paul. He wrote 2/3. He thought he was coming here to die.
And I think,
no, he's teaching you a responsibility of belief.
And a problem with this is that so much of it.
Are you sweating under that?
No. So much of it.
He's still wearing the tinfoil.
So much of it is motivated by fear. And Terry Crews, who Adam could have been friends with, Terry Crews.
There's a lot of people I could have been best friends with. It just didn't work out.
Has a great testimony about this because, and it really was eye-opening for me hearing it from him because, this whole Left Behind predispositional sort of, it is largely motivated by fear and sky is falling sort of a thing. And he talked about growing up in the 70s or 80s with this theology was kind of at its peak into the 90s, I would say. And he said it was a really traumatic experience for him as a kid, you know, because you're seeing clothes strewn across the floor, and you're thinking, oh my God, I'm left behind, and you're afraid. When I had that experience a number of times as a kid, and I'm afraid. That's traumatic. That is a traumatic experience, right? And you are growing up with this fear constantly. Fear of the tribulation, fear of being left behind. Oh, I better rededicate my life on Sunday because the rapture could happen. I'll get left behind if God sees that I sin just one time too much to make me lose my salvation. And so I better ensure myself, and because I don't want to be left behind and get my head chopped off and go through the tribulation. And it's based upon like fear. And like, first of all, there are a lot of Christians in other countries that don't believe this eschatology. They're going through a tribulation of their own, a hell of their own. That, you know, Christians in the past 2,000 years have gone through legitimate tribulation. Mm-hmm. The tribulation I personally experienced in my own experience, I would trade for getting my head chopped off or any sort of 7-year peril that's going to come upon me. In other words, it is kind of like this first world country sort of a thing where it's like we don't really suffer, and so it's like, oh my God, I got to escape the suffering, I got to escape the tribulation. But there are people in other countries that are like they're going through the tribulation, and that's one of the interpretations of Revelation, is that the tribulation is actually referring to, you know, church history and the tribulation that most Christians, a lot of Christians will face, some Christians more than others. But at the end of the day, we all have our own sort of tribulation that we're called to. Yeah. And, you know,
and at some point, those...
look at the slavery, the cattle slavery. When that happened during that period of 400 years, right? It's like chattel slavery. Are you going to downplay? Like, are you going to say that's not a tribulation? That those Christians didn't go through tribulation, having to be separated from their families, their children, their wives, having to, you know, go through that slavery experience and not experience freedom in their lifetime. You're going to tell me that wasn't tribulation? And so it's like, I'm not trying to live a life motivated by fear. I want to, from now on, I want to see the crap around me and I want to endure the crap that I experience, but I want to be as optimistic. I want to be as hopeful. I want to be as positive as possible. And for me, I also want to unite Christians as much as possible. I don't want to be a source of disunity. That's why I'm always trying to hug the Catholics, and I'm trying to hug the Orthodox, and I'm trying to hug all these other denominations that hold to the essentials, and I just want to give them a big old kiss because I'm like, listen, guys.
Show me, how would you give them a kiss?
I would have the Pope kiss me and bless me, or I would kiss his ring.
Hello, Papa.
But I would go to the Vatican.
Hello, Papa.
I'm going to go to the Vatican next year, and I'm going to kiss the Pope's ring, and I'm going to say, God bless you, God bless you, Padre.
You know I'm the most connected person, so if you want to go, I can get you into the Pope tomorrow.
Yeah. So I'm just about like, listen, life is too short to be thinking about what all these little theological little things that divide us. I want to focus on the essentials. Mm-hmm. I want to be positive. I want to focus on unity, and I want us to work together as Christians under the banner that Christ is King, the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, that He is the source of eternal life.
All of Christ for all of life.
All of Christ.
Are we putting that? We need Jesus Christ.
Eternal
we need to
life.
put that on merch. All of Christ for all life.
We're working on it. It's in my notes. It's in my notes. We're doing it. All of Christ for all of life.
That was
rich. I have one question.
And see, I think like that though because I have this on.
Because you have mental illnesses.
Because
you have
because one of the chief results of the devil's lying tactics is to get us to hate each other and to judge each other and to focus on our differences.
Watch. I see you.
And yep.
Watch this.
And so
I see you in the corner. Like that girl on the airplane. That guy back there is not real.
Yes.
That's it.
That was wild.
Chelsea, I got one question. How's this feel for your little bubble right now? How's your
It's being bursted. I wasn't really firm in my stance on pre or post. I didn't really like swing one way. It's not something I really always think about, but I am very pessimistic about the health of the church right now, the capital C church. So that's why when we talk about it being perfected, I'm like, but when you think about it in the perspective of we could be in the infancy stage, then that changes my whole perspective of it.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I think if you post-millennial, you definitely have to, I think you would have to admit that we're probably still in the infancy phase. Mm-hmm. But also, you can't, you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet. Yeah. So I don't really look at the quote-unquote health of the church and think that there is anything necessarily wrong other than, some cracking and breaking, and society is going through a questioning. In fact, I'm meeting more committed Christians than ever than I knew when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. So if I think back of, when I was a kid to where I'm at now, like those that are truly committed to Christ are far more committed than what I saw as a kid. I saw a lot of people that I really respected as a kid who played church very well. And I look at them now and they're in their 60s and they don't even go to church anymore. Mm-hmm. They're not even, some of them aren't even married anymore. They're not even. So when I think we're quick to talk about this young generation, Gen Z, I'm like, look at the older generation that was in the church. Like they're a lot, not all. Like that's what I'm saying. Like I know a lot of good Christians, but the ones that I knew growing up, when I look at there now, like they're not in the church. So unless you're going to go back and just say, I think in the past 50 years it's gone to heck, then, or 100 years, okay, because then I can go back to my childhood and say, yeah, I know people who definitely weren't a part of that. But this idea of like, oh my gosh, what Billy Graham was doing in the Crusade era, like we're not even touching. But that generation and those eras are the same ones that raised and had kids that went into the divorce rate.
Yeah.
And statistics are statistics. Like your family and how you grow up and how you're released, it does determine, most of your values. And so if you're looking at divorce rates from the 90s, which were still kind of almost 50-50, well, the ones of the 90s were being raised by the ones who went to the Crusades. Yeah. In the 50s and 60s. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and here's the thing with post-millennial. It says that he will reign until he puts all of his enemies under his feet. What are the enemies? Enemies are ideologies that corrupt society. And so, slavery was ended. I mean, as far as it being openly promoted, there's still slavery that goes under the table, but that's an ideology that has ended, right? And it took a long time for it to end, but that's an ideology that Christ conquered under his feet. AI could be another one. As AI morphs into more sinister areas and more positive, but more sinister, Christ put it under his feet. The divorce rate, the broken homes, that's largely attributed to contraceptions, the sexual revolution. And there's going to have to come a time where, or there may come a time where Christ puts that enemy under his feet.
I choose to believe there
and
will
the homes become more healthier.
Yeah.
And so as you get these, Christ is allowing history to play out, and he's like holding Satan and demons on a leash, but he's like, okay, guys, wreak your havoc, do your thing, watch how I work. And he kind of conquers them. They try to come up with their little tactics to do what they do, and then Christ is like, okay, checkmate. All right, go ahead. Your move now. All right, checkmate. Just beat that one. And so that's kind of another perspective of post-millennialism.
Well, and here's what I think is the beauty of it, because to your point, a person would then ask, well, how is Christ doing that? And normally it's through us. Mm-hmm. That's how he's doing it.
Well, through the church. Yeah.
So I've always wondered, and me and Caleb have this like private chat, like why people wouldn't be more post-millennial, because most of the Christians who are like fighting the education system and fighting the contraceptive movement and all that stuff like that, these tend to be most the time white, conservative, evangelical Christians. Most of them do identify as premillennial. but that doesn't necessarily work for the premillennial theology, because the premillennial theology is the premillennial, we separate ourselves, the world goes to hell, we get ascended to heaven. So this fight to fight education, to fight contraception, to fight society, it really ultimately doesn't work for the premillennial theology, but that's what most of them are. They believe the rapture is going to happen any moment in the sense of before the millennial age where Jesus rules, right? But it actually works best with post-millennial theory that says, I get involved in the education system because I believe this thing gets better. I get involved in the contraceptive movement because I think this gets better. I begin to work with mothers and single mothers because I believe under God's kingdom, we've let the government do its thing, and so we're going to get back into the place we used to. So like theoretically, having the mentality that the church gets better and we get better at serving humanity works best for those that believe that we as Christians should be involved in politics and all these other things. Like, it's much more believable, and it does put more responsibility, which to me is also why you don't have a lot of Christians who are getting involved in those things. Because if you are, again, your beliefs will determine your actions. So, you know, I think more people would be involved in education and politics and these other things as Christians if they believe that the Lord is using you to make this better. You know, like there is a much more positive approach to it. And then, you know, someone asked me like, well, what if you're wrong, Adam? I go, well, I'm a Christian, so I ascend to heaven when Jesus returns before the tribulation period. Like, if I'm wrong, the plan still goes to play.
It's a win-win.
You know, the plan still goes to play.
And that's the thing too.
You know, like,
living in a post-millennial mindset.
Both
it's a win-win.
eschatologies are
Because I get to
he's
live.
still going to do what he's going to do. You know?
I get to live in my naivete and my positivity and my optimism.
And die in that, or live the rest of your life in.
Always
get water, get water, get toiletries, get toilet paper. Because if you're left behind, you're going to need it.
I don't land on either side of that spectrum yet. Like, I'm not, you know, pre or post. I think I'm just in the middle trying to explore what I believe about it.
And it's a matter of perspective. It's a matter of perspective because
I'm like Caleb.
As the American church.
I'm like Caleb in the sense that I have higher education too. I went to a Pentecostal university and a Reformed university, both of which are and we're premillennial, and I'm on the board of a university. It's a premillennial school. I do not throw the baby out with the bathwater, but so I, like Caleb, higher education, educated on both sides, both in a charismatic sense and
this
a
is like
sense,
this is not an area either of us are ignorant in. Like for people to be like, oh, well, you got to read this new book on it. This
someone's going to give me a whatever con that guy is.
If there's anything I could speak authoritatively on, it's eschatology. And
if I ever act naive about something regarding Christianity, it's not because I am naive. It just means that I'm acting naive because I don't think you're going to listen in a conversation. So when I go, oh, really? That's interesting. I'll check it out. If I don't say anything back, it's because I've already made the decision that you're pretty set in your way. And you're not here to have a conversation. You're here to tell me what to think. You know,
and the American church, like you said, you see the American church like sucks. It's like, you know, but it's all a matter of perspective because
I wouldn't say it fully sucks. I'm just saying in the
it's hard to
progression of health.
Okay.
Is it getting healthier? Am I seeing signs of the church getting healthier?
Well, it's a matter of perspective because you have the Church of China that's now healthy, a lot healthier than us.
Iran.
You have Middle East. You have. Shout out! You have Russia, Orthodoxy, state church. So you know, you still have
There's a global perspective that I think needs to be taken into consideration.
You have a lot of countries in Africa that claim themselves as Christian countries, and they are upholding to certain values that are biblical, and you know, and so another thing is you see the world countries are becoming more nationalistic. They're becoming less this one world government idea, and they're like, no, we want to do our own thing. Back off, America. Back off, West. We want to live a life that in accordance with our values. They're becoming more nationalistic. And the thing with these prophecies is there are clear nations going on in the 1,000-year reign. There are distinctive nations. It's not just homogenous blend of people. It's this distinct nations, number one. And then you have where it says, if a person dies at the age of 100, they'll be considered a shock to everybody. So in other words, there's going to come a time, now premillennials would say this is in the 1,000-year reign. Postmillennials would say probably that it's a time period where the church is so healthy and influencing in the world that with that comes an increase in health. Because a lot of our health issues are connected with sin, our sin issues. And so the more the
Shout
church,
out Pastor Diego on holistic living.
the more the church overcomes,
Which we're going to have him
the
do an episode.
more God will entrust us with remedies and with health. And so we'll get to the point where, like, that's crazy. That's a verse in Isaiah. That's a verse in Isaiah.
Yeah.
If that's crazy, the lion will lie with the lamb, and if a person die, but it's clear a person will die. So there's still death. So there's still death going on in the world. And if a person dies at the age of 100, that'll be a shock to the community.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What would the world have to look like
To get to
for
that
a
point.
person
Yep.
to, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I completely
Yeah.
get what you're saying. Yeah.
Well, and natural knowledge begins to grow, right? We're seeing, these people who are, solidifying mostly natural ingredients that extend the age of our life on top of, modern natural things that we're able to cure, right? Because knowledge grows, it creates more cures for things, right? We live longer. We live longer today than people did 200 years ago, oftentimes 300 years ago. So you're also seeing, that's where I choose to believe like a lot of these things work hand in hand, So this idea of anything, quote unquote, we just label anything that isn't done in the church as secular, but there is really no such thing as secularism. There's kingdom of light, kingdom of darkness. That's it.
Yeah, there's
That's
nothing in
it.
between. Yeah.
So you'll hear people like, oh man, I don't believe in that secular thing. Well, what is a secular thing? Oh, he comes from a secular business. What is a secular business? There's only kingdom of light and kingdom of darkness. So are you saying that guy is in the kingdom of darkness? No, he's a believer. He's in the kingdom of light. So, I'm not saying there isn't secularism, but you have to define that. Just because it's not in the four walls of a building or the person isn't necessarily like creating a church within their company, that everybody's part of the kingdom. And if you view that, that's what Jonathan Edwards viewed. He viewed everything could potentially be the kingdom of heaven and the kingdom of light. So therefore, let us ratify everything that we can as much as possible to make it the kingdom of the light. What would happen if I started telling my son, not that, oh, son, the world is going to hell in a handbasket, so let us eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. Or I started telling my son, careful what you do, careful what you say, careful the people, the women you lay with. Be careful about the decisions you make in life. Believe the best of things. Build the kingdom of God. Build the kingdom of heaven. Give to your church. Give to society. Give to those in need. Give to those who are hurting, because this gets better and you can have a part to play in this. You can see God's kingdom come here on earth, right? Lord's Prayer. Kingdom come on earth as it is heaven, right? God's kingdom will come here on earth. What some of the more kind of, others, you call it premillennial, you call it charismatic or whatever, what they're saying is they're continually drilling it down to the individual. But you rarely see Jesus make statements of the individual. It's the kingdom of heaven, which we're a part of. And so we're meant to be homogenous. We're meant to move together, to grow together. And so in this homogenous nature, and I said that, like, there's one side you could look at it, like, we'll look at American Christianity, but I'm also seeing the other side of Christianity that sees we are moving together succinctly more than we ever have before. We are saying no to certain true secular ideologies and saying, well, we're just not going to buy there anymore if you're going to do that. We're not going to visit this anymore if we're going to do that. I mean, I think in a grander scale that continues to get healthier and healthier, where you begin to see, individuals,
and also even
involved,
if you see if you see the Catholic Church, which recent revelation I've come to accept, Catholic Church is a part of Christ's church, then the optimism of the church expands so much greater, because that is a 1 billion person army, the Catholic Church. And so, because when I was like, it's like, oh man, like, I'm this Reformed Calvinist. Nobody like 2 people in the world believe Calvinism. It's like, oh man, like this world sucks. Like the church sucks. Like we're such a minority, but it's like, no, you have Orthodox, you have Catholics, you have Pentecostals, you have this. We all encompass the church. Oh wow, the church is a whole lot bigger than I thought it was. Yeah. And the Holy Spirit in Christ is a whole lot more in control, especially in human history, than I thought he was. He didn't wake up in the 15th century. He's been moving since.
And if you take on this mindset, it leads you to another beautiful reality, which goes, what if the Lord begins to massively convert Muslims? Like, you know how many Muslims there are in the world?
Yeah.
Just as many Christians.
Yeah.
So what happens if all of a sudden imams start being converted? What happens if all of a sudden Muslims begin to become awakened by the power of the Spirit of God, which is only he can do? But as the church gets more beautiful and more better, what would happen if then that entire area of individuals, right? What would happen if those begin to come part and awaken to the true gospel and hear now you're talking about a new army that's been added. Now you're talking about if both Christian and then if Muslims became Christians, like you're talking about well over majority of the people in the earth are now truly part of the kingdom of God. You could see how God's church would begin to reign truer and truer, right?
Yeah.
Should that happen? Should it, again, that's where I said, but should it not? And I was wrong. Well, then, pursue Christ every day as you would in every sense, because you shouldn't be left behind. You definitely don't want to be left behind. So, and you'll see 7-year tribulation period with that area, right? But it's like, either way, I still get a part of
there's
that,
a saying, though. There's a saying, too, along the lines of, it's so powerful. Like, when you worry, you suffer twice. When you worry, you suffer twice. So when you worry about something happening in the future, first of all, the odds of something that you're worrying about happening, the odds of it happening is very small. But even if it does happen, so you suffer by that happening, right? But if you worry in the present, you're also suffering.
Yeah.
So you're making yourself suffer twice.
Yeah.
So that's the way I look with premillennialism. It's like, okay, if I worry about these things, then I'm suffering twice. Not only am I living in this fear of being left behind, and I'm suffering in that regard in my mind, but I also suffer if I have to be left behind and I get my head chopped off or whatever I'm afraid of. Whatever I'm afraid of.
Yeah.
So let me just live optimistically, positively, and hope for the best. Believe all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Yeah. Now, let me ask you this, Chelsea, because you talked about the American church not looking healthy, right? So what is your image of like what a healthy church in America would look like?
That's a good
for you not to have that, for you to get to a point where you don't have that criticism.
Well, as you guys are talking about the different denominations and all of that stuff, you guys have a perspective that the church is bigger than what it is, and I never had that perspective. I think there's all these different denominations who are divided on the minors and stuck on that stuff, and it's stupid. So I see not a bigger church, I see a divided church, and that's just perspective. And I could be wrong in the perspective. I'm not saying I'm stuck to that, but that's been my perspective. Like all these people, the church is fighting each other.
We're definitely divided. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
So it's
You're
like,
right. We are divided. Yeah.
Yeah. The church is big, but it's like divided. And then when I look at what's happening in society, is the church set up in a way where as society, in my mind, is getting worse or more confusion is reigning in society? Do we have a backbone as a church, with as divided as we are, to stand up to the unhealth of society? So that's where my criticism
What
comes
does standing up to the unhealth of society look like?
When it comes to LGBTQ, when it comes to gender roles and all of that language that's happening, like, is the church at a place where we will stand up to the truth of God's word and not want to conform to what, because I was just listening to something this morning.
So that's the question. Do you think the church is conforming to those things?
Currently no. But when I look at, and I'm looking at like Gen Z and my little sister and their generation, am I setting that generation up to, this is going to be their battle, as divorce was our parents' thing in the church? Are they set up well to where they're like, no, this is wrong, but they're growing up with this belief that you could be whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want. Are they set up theologically to stand up for truth when the time comes? That's what I'm thinking about. So it could be me worrying twice. However, that's where my mind goes. Like with this next.
So you believe it's our responsibility to make it better for them?
100%. 100%, which would lead me more in the camp of I do think it is our responsibility. I don't think I ever landed in pre. I don't think I was ever there, which is why. But I was never really for post, and not for it. But I never.
Your parents probably didn't. You didn't grow up with your parents watching TBN all day, probably.
No, not at all.
That's the key difference.
It did not at all. But we did like.
Did you do like Kirk Cameron Left Behind series?
Left Behind series, we did. We did do that series, but my parents never lived a life where we let that dictate how we lived.
Mm-hmm. Which is great. I mean, it enforces the idea of personal responsibility, but it doesn't enforce the idea that you can shape culture. But the average Christian that I hear, they're imploring us to shape culture, which that's not necessarily a premillennial theory. Premillennial theory is not to shape culture; it's to separate yourself from culture
100%.
and idealize in a bubble. And so, individuals who are like, go on Facebook, go on Instagram, go to this, fight this, go to Congress, fight this, go to your school council, fight this. Like, that's not a premillennial theory expression. That's a post-millennial expression.
For the hope of
you're
it
trying to
better.
change an unbeliever. But a post-millennial believes I can change the environment of an unbeliever, which will put them in the environment to progressively begin to believe, right? I can shape that. I can shape that environment so that they see the beauty of Christ and his church. And so I
believe that 100%. I believe 100%.
I mean, it's just, but
my ideology and my perspective of this is very American. So that's also a thing. It's not necessarily a global perspective when it comes to this conversation. So that's when I talk about the health of the church. I think there are healthy things in the American church, but then with the past 50 to 100 years, I'm just like, why are we so divided?
And I wouldn't say just American. I would say Western, because like I got friends in England and Germany and all that, and for the past 100 years, everyone has taken note from America. So if you could say, oh, well, I know a country that's like that, and they're in Germany or church, it's like, well, more than likely they've been influenced by America. Because if you go to like certain, especially non-denominational churches, right? If you go to England and you go to the Church of England, which is majority of churches, like they don't look like American churches at all. They're liturgical. They look much more Catholic or Orthodox, and they're great expressions, right? But if you go to any churches that are not that in England, then they all look like American churches, and most of them are like they're singing American, singing Hillsong and Elevation and but like now you go out of the Western front, and then now you're in the Middle East, now you're in Africa, now you're in Asia. Now you see a whole side to the church that didn't exist, the goods and the bads, right? Just like it is here for us, but
that's true. I went to London and was thrown into the fire. Was like, babe, preach to 400 students just on the spot. And as I did, and I talked to some of their staff members, they really do glean, and they were asking us questions as if we had this whole church thing figured out. So they're like, tell us all that you do. And so that there's a lot of truth to that.
But I believe this post-Christian age is a beautiful age. I mean, I meet people. I see the beauty in it. I meet people right now who come to me on a Sunday and say, this is our first time ever stepping foot in a church. I have friends that pastor in the Bible Belt who don't believe that. I was just talking to one of my pastor friends, and he was like, you literally meet people on Sundays who have never been in a church before? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, I don't think I've ever met anyone. He's in Texas. He's like, I don't think I've ever met anyone who has never been to church. And then he's like, just started posing questions like, what's it like? What are they asking? What are they doing? And I'm telling him like, and they're hungry. They're hungry for God. They're hungry for the Lord. They're hungry to make their marriage matter. They're hungry to make their faith matter. They read the book of Acts and they take it serious. There's all these things that are really beautiful about that post-Christian person who, in the grander scale of things, if you look at what God's plan is like since we have derailed and fell off of true religion, right? Since we have derailed from it, there's going to be a season where the eggs begin to crack, and I see the beauty of the post-Christian age being an age where we can rebuild what the true church is meant to look like and what our faith is meant to look like than what was built 100 years ago, where the expression of faith was basically, it's like, well, whatever you did on a Sunday mattered, but your Monday through Saturday, it really didn't. And as long as as long as if he comes tomorrow, you're good and you're going to church and you're doing all the outside things right, then you're going to be okay, right? Whereas more so, I'm posing the question like, what are you doing for his church? What are you doing in his church? What are you doing that lasts longer than you? And if your question is nothing, then are you bringing the kingdom of God from heaven to earth? Yeah. Are you really doing that, or are you individually living a life as a Christian? Which congratulations, yeah. You're great, but how come your kids won't believe? How come your children's won't believe? Well, because it hasn't ratified into your whole being. It's ratified into your psyche and your fear that, like Caleb said, you don't want to be left behind. You don't want to take the mark of the beast. You don't want, government X, Y, and Z. It's this motivated of fear. And so then your children and your grandchildren are not seeing the transformational work of Christ. They're seeing your motivation of fear to not be the one who says yes to Satan. I don't want to be like Adam and Eve. I don't want to
even have a lot of people who turn to Christ become Christians because they're afraid of hell.
Right.
Like they have to be feared, scared into heaven. Yeah. And this is... Well, we grew up in youth, right? This was a blight on a lot of...
If he comes tomorrow,
this was a blight on a lot of youth ministries. Yeah. Us growing up, incredibly traumatic experience. Hell House, which I hate. I hate the concept of Hell House.
I was so against that. I've never gone through it.
I hate the concept of Hell House. It's so traumatic. And then the same people want to say Harry Potter's evil, and they want to say watching a rated R horror movie is evil. But you're doing a freaking Hell House
where a person's getting like a live abortion,
scaring
like
people
a fake one,
death.
A live abortion, but to scare you,
and those are traumatic experiences, and so I'm totally against, especially with
the next generation is starting to be against that. Like,
yes,
I'm not going to
and you're right. And you're right. And you need to deconstruct that. That is a deconstruction I bless, because here's the thing.
In nomine Patris et Spiritus Sancti, Padre Caleb has blessed it.
Because here's what I realized. Scaring people into heaven by preaching these graphic images of hell and showing these graphic depictions of hell, first of all, is it biblical? Not really, because Jesus reserved the harsh language of hell to the Pharisees. Not everybody needs that message necessarily.
Yeah.
Children don't need that message. Youth don't necessarily need that message.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a time when somebody is so depraved or hardened of heart where they need to be shaken. Like this was Alice Cooper's testimony, right? He goes, I needed to hear a hellfire sermon because I was so in sin. Correct. I was so addicted. I needed to be scared into heaven. But it's the love of God that kept me there, right? And so, but not everybody is Alice Cooper. Not everybody, is living this hellish life so hardened and that they need these graphic, traumatic expressions of hell.
But even the Pharisees had a base understanding of Scripture.
That's my philosophy of things.
This is what I've discovered. The Pharisees had not discovered, but as I've been pondering on it, they had a base understanding of the law, which is why they were upset. Jesus came and was doing everything against it. But they had a base understanding of this is how you're supposed to live your life. With this next generation, as I'm studying them more, they don't even have that base foundation of what that looks like yet. But we're trying to teach them about, you want to make it to heaven and not hell, but we're not teaching them the base foundation. I was just talking to, I'm not even going to mention the person. I was just talking to somebody, and they kind of got upset with me because I called people old. And within the church, like, don't call us old, we're seasoned type conversation. And the conversation was based around the reason why we show up to church with hats on and dressed to the nines, because we have a fear and a reverence of the Lord, and we want to honor Him and respect Him. And this next generation doesn't do that, and you guys show up with baseball caps and walk. That's why we have a problem with you.
They're still saying that stuff?
Yes, I just had a conversation with somebody.
There are a lot of people still saying that.
Still saying that, and they're like, so why don't you guys? This is why we have a problem with you guys. And I was like, well, maybe the reason we have a problem with you guys is because you're presenting how we should live before why we should love this person. Why should we love this God? Because it's then when I love God, then I want to fear Him. Then I want to live my life different.
Yeah, right.
But you're telling me live my life different before you're showing me why I should.
Yes.
You're not showing me the love of God first.
Right.
So I don't
right,
want to
right,
change my
right,
life. I
right,
don't.
Right.
For what?
Right,
I'm
right.
going to go out
yeah.
why should I?
Yeah.
So that's the
Yeah,
next
yeah.
generation. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
okay, you're scaring me. I'm not going to serve a God. So
But it's also like, but I also just saw your Facebook post where you're, cutting someone off. Don't follow me if you. I saw you at the grocery store cussing out the teller. But I'm glad you wore a hat to church on Sunday. I'm glad you wore a 3-piece suit.
Well, the sin of those types of people is gossip.
That's
and
for
they're
sure.
gossiping all the time.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just as bad of a sin in if their own standards. Like, gossip is just as bad of a sin as. Well, not that it is a sin to come to church with a baseball cap or casual or whatever, but gossip is an actual sin that God actually hates.
Yeah.
And
Now
a lot
you're
of
showing
those,
up
a
with a
lot of those
baseball cap in
people
church.
live on gossip
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they're so holier than thou, and that's the Pharisee mindset. They live off of gossip, and God hates that a lot more than he
And
hates
those individuals
the
need
person
the
wearing a
gnashing
baseball
of
cap.
teeth and hellfire and brimstone
And
type of
100%.
type of sermon, because you need a
Yes.
wake up call out of your own religion and your own skies.
Yes.
Now, I think I love when I see individuals in the church wearing 3-piece suits and hats and everything like that. I think that's a cadence
me too.
and that
Yeah.
recognizes a different age. But I don't think it was the culture then, and they don't understand. Like, you mirrored a culture then, right? Like, because if you go 100 years further, the type of suit you're wearing is not the type of suit they were wearing, and vice versa. And you continue to go down trend. Fashion has changed. And respectability has changed in different ways. In today's age, when you wear a suit to someone, it does not necessarily demand respect. It doesn't show honor. It doesn't. Back then, it did that. So back then, 40 years ago, if you went into a certain atmosphere and you weren't wearing a suit and you're wearing someone else, it would immediately demean the environment, and it would show a disrespect, to society and to the individuals, and it showed a lack of intellect and all these other things like that, right? But in today's age, if I wear a suit in certain settings, actually it will be a disrespect because no one else is doing it. And so it's like, well, what are you trying to be? What are you trying to set yourself up
If somebody
as,
came
right?
in as a
Like, that
3-piece
would be,
suit, like on a regular work day, we would be like, "What? Are you good?" Like all of us, none of us.
But
are
not
like,
just us in church, but like in
any
any one
setting,
work setting, right?
100%.
Like if
True.
you just so you're in a that's where I would tell a person, you're in a different culture. You're in a different culture. Now, if you could tell me and show me that you've discipled your children and your grandchildren and they're in the church and they're dressing the way you dress, I will have a lot of respect for you, because I will say then you have had success at discipling your immediate sphere of the next generation to do so. I think of Curtis Rowe Jr.
Yeah.
His son wears a suit out of respect for his dad, but his dad has also not said, your faith is by what you wear. It's just what they've done culturally. And then his son came to our young adult night wearing Jordans, jeans, and a t-shirt, right?
100%.
He was aware of that atmosphere. He honors his mother and father. He wears the suit for his dad as a respect of what they were raised as. All hands to you, Brother Curtis. You have raised your son to dress in a way not that demands respect or is appropriate for quote unquote church. It's what resembles your culture. And I celebrate that. Just the same way we have Africans who come to church on Sunday in our church wearing dashikis. I celebrate that. Do that. And then their children many times will come wearing dashikis. That is beautiful, because you're discipling the next generation in a way that goes, hey, we don't do this because this makes us loved more by God. We do this because we honor our culture. We honor our upgrading. My grandma, when we lived in Louisiana, she would have us dress this way. And
It's a part
when
of their
I do
personality.
it, I
It's a
honor my
part of their
grandma.
character.
But to say I don't mess
and I
with-
respect that.
yeah.
It's when
Yeah.
you judge somebody for not
And that
doing,
was
not
my issue.
adopting.
So that's where I'm giving
your
credence, right?
preference.
Like
Yeah,
that's where I would
where-
investigate. If someone was talking about dress, I will say, you will immediately get more respect from me if you can show me that you have downtrended your immediate sphere of generation, that they are doing the same. If they are not in church, if they do not dress that way, then I would challenge you that you've been a person less about making disciples and more about being critical. More maybe about gossiping and Caleb's in that way, right? Build the respectability of that, because what we have is people coming into church who literally have no concept of God. They can't point to the book of Genesis. They can't point to the book of Mark.
Yes.
And God forbid we go on stage and say anywhere within the first 10 steps has anything to do with what you're wearing right now. I mean, we got girls coming to our church that have OnlyFans that are getting saved.
Yes.
That we're discipling them out of just shutting down their OnlyFans, you know, like to then go, well, step number one, you know, just go to the store and change. Like that's dangerous.
And that was my
that's
issue.
a very dangerous thing.
She came
you know?
at me very harsh, and she that's why we don't mess with you. And I was like, what if I didn't know God and this is the first time I stepped into church?
We don't mess with you.
Yeah. I'm like, what if I was just a person, this is my
it
first time.
It breaks my heart that, you know, there are people doing that still today.
And I even posed her, I said, what if this is my first time stepping into church and it's just a miracle that I'm a millennial who just decided to come to church and you're mad at me because of how I'm dressed. By the way, you don't even know my name. And I introduced myself. I said, this is what we need. Get to know who we are and why we believe what we believe.
Let me say one other thing too. Let me say one other thing too to what you said. Stop thinking being old is a bad thing.
Yeah, I just
like there was an era where being old was a good thing.
Yeah.
Like people don't honor old people anymore. Well, honor is earned; it's not demanded. So I know plenty of old people who get massive amounts of honor. I honor them. I know 12-year-olds who honor them.
For sure,
you know, like it is a stature of your being, not in what you say.
And it depends
right?
on what culture you're in, because in other cultures in the East and stuff, like the elderly is greatly honored. In America, it's not, because it's an individualistic culture that
we've taught that in many ways.
Yeah.
But here's what I'm continuing saying is stop saying the word old or being old and try to make us flavor your age by calling you seasoned or whatever. Like I know we have our thing is called young at heart, and again it's part of that seasoning with flavor to make people feel okay. But there is beauty in you growing in your age. There is beauty in you being older. If you're a person that doesn't like the term old, then you also should be a person that doesn't like the term young, because you can't throw one out. So you can't say, oh, here's my issue with young people, while also saying you're not allowed to call me old. Right? Like if you call me young, then you're old. Okay. Yeah. But if you don't believe in any labels, then I'll respect you and I'll not bring any labels, and I'll call you whatever you want to be called, just like gender pronouns, right? They don't want to believe in gender pronouns, but they want their terminology of age to be respected. Call me seasoned or call me this, but I'm not going to call that person they, right? Like it's like you want pronouns too. Like old is old and young is young. At what age that is, it's determined on the age of a person. To an 11-year-old, someone who's 45 is old.
Yeah.
That's my son calls me old. I'm 33. Like, I'm not offended by it, So, but then to someone who's in their 30s, someone in their 70s is old, and that's not a bad thing. Now, if it comes out of a place of disrespect, then talk about it, speak about it, and say, hey, I feel like you're trying to, feel like being disrespectful, hurt. Yeah. Okay, cool. But just to say, oh, this person's an older person, or this person's an older person in my life, and saying, I don't like that. That's offensive.
Generally, they feel disrespected because we don't do church in the fashion that they do. And I don't consider that disrespect. We just, church.
It shouldn't, though.
It shouldn't be. But that's where I'm like, why do you feel disrespected by us? What have we done?
If someone could show me a church that has young people in it that's still being done in the fashion that person is wanting it expressed, then I'll give $1 million. Because you're not going to find it.
And they probably forget that when they were young, what they got used to was probably revolutionary during their time. Maybe. It's just a thought. Yeah, it's like, that's what I'm saying. Because sometimes it could be a double standard, right? Yeah. Where it's like, well, that thing that you're used to, whatever expression you're used to it, you became used to that when you were younger, and the church culture did that in order to reach you. And then you enjoyed it because it reached your culture and your generation, and now you're wanting that same thing in this new culture, this new generation.
You look at this. Here's a perfect example to what you're saying. As an example, you take someone who's like my grandma, who got, I don't know the exact distinctives, but, maybe got saved in her 40s, something like that. So she's in her 40s. And if my grandma came to me and said, in 2023, we're not doing church like we did in my 40s, of what the church was doing and looked like when I got saved, and church was doing this, I could easily pose to her and be like, but Grandma, you came out of Catholicism and you went into Protestantism. So you did leave something that was, quote, in your eyes, quote unquote, older, that was more traditional, and you went to something newer that you loved as a 40-year-old that appealed to you out of Catholicism into Protestantism as something more. So therefore, we have people to this day that are leaving secularism who are coming into our church who are going to have that same experience.
You don't even have to compare it to Catholic, because that was during the charismatic renewal. And
all I'm saying though is she went from something into something, and everyone has
what
something
she went
that they
into
did,
was a fresh experience.
That's the
that
point
even
I'm
the
making.
Protestant denominations.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's
So
the
you
point
don't
I'm
even have to
making,
draw
is
that
like-
extreme
is
of Catholic. You could just even go within the bubble of Protestantism. They
But she didn't
like
know
that.
that.
A lot
but
of
for
them
her,
didn't
it
even
was
like
only
that.
Catholicism,
Right. So
for her, she didn't know what was going on in Protestantism. So that I'm just making the example.
But even
of
like
her, in
yeah,
that
and
sense.
and you're right, but I'm saying like, so you take 45-year-old her or 45-year-old boomer who's criticizing this current expression of worship, when they were 45, growing up in that. There were 60, 70, and 80-year-olds criticizing what they were going through.
For sure.
100%.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whether it had been, an emphasis on altar calls, a modernistic version of worship music, because they used to be hymns, and then the charismatic renewal started to bring in non-hymns, and just started doing more of
When
dark.
was the charismatic renewal? What year?
The 70s, 80s, 90s. That was like their heyday. So Darling Sheck and individuals like that, and they were pivotal to it. So I just think, like people need to be careful to be critical. I think criticism and critique is very important. I love criticism and critique. I wouldn't be where we're at right now without criticism and critique in terms of what we feel is important for culture and what we need to be doing. But you cannot express it in the outer things. Like that is a very dangerous thing. That is a Pharisaical mindset to go into the outer. Comments should be on the inner, and I think what would be anyone could be more appropriate is my problem with the younger generation is, and you need to flower that in the sense of convictions and values, and then now we have to say, well, what are we doing to facilitate
rather than what you're wearing,
and help them change their values, help them change their conviction. It has to be it has to be something deeper than quote unquote respect and authority and dress and this and that. I mean, that's why for us, I up and down. I wear suits some days. I don't wear suits one day. I want everyone to feel welcome. I want to become all things to all men. But what I refuse to do is take a Pharisaical mindset. A young person could have a Pharisaical mindset. A young person could say, I'm not going to listen to that person because they look like they're from another century with the way that they dress. Maybe if they wore Jordans, I would listen to them. I'd still say, young person, shame on you. But the young person tends to be the more naive one. So as the older people, we have to actually make more steps to welcome them in, then they're gonna have critic. You talk to a young person, they got criticisms for days, but you scoff at it because you go, oh, you're young, you're inexperienced, you'll learn. What can't happen is an older person having a young person's
choosing to
mind,
disengage because of that,
or disengage, but sounding like you're 20.
I think the opposite, because I love Gen Z more than I love millennials. I seem to love younger generation more than my own generation. Well, I like the newness of it, and
I don't understand. What part do you disagree with?
I love my daughter's generation more than.
What part do you disagree with?
No, I don't understand that. No, I'm not. I don't know.
People,
I'm not
me.
of that mindset. No, I'm not disagreeing. No, I'm not of that mindset of like, oh, it's my generation or we're the greatest generation, which is like the older generation. That's the mindset, right?
Yeah.
Like, my generation is the greatest. We did it the greatest. Why are we doing it my way? And I'm just saying, like, for me, I love my kids' generation more than my generation. I love Gen Z more than my generation. It's just because I'm just intrigued by newness, and I'm not going to get so set in my ways that you guys suck if you don't listen to my music. You guys are less than. You guys are this. I try to like be entertained and be by younger generations and enjoy
here's what I
it.
was gonna say. At your point, like what's funny is like what someone could have a critical about the young generation. The only reason why you can have the criticism is because you're in proximity to them. And so you should count yourself blessed if you are part of a church that has a bunch of young people coming to it, because there are a lot of churches that don't have young people coming to it, and you'd have no idea what the young people are doing and not doing, because you'd be in a you'd be in a church that's dying, not in actual,
man,
not in actual age, but dying in terms of energy. No one comes anymore. So that's why if someone who's whatever word you want to use, seasoned, comes to me and complains about young people, I'm like, the fact that you can even complain about them is a blessing because they're here. They're in proximity, which means your church is doing something good, healthy.
Agree.
I had this is personal experience.
And the fruit of young people is not the fact that it's good; it's the fact that they're being discipled. It's healthier. Go ahead.
I had this awakening because the thing about being in the Reformed Calvinistic community for as long as I was in it, you're reading all these books, and the books they encourage you to read are by dead guys, right? Because they were so much more sophisticated and connected to God in their thoughts. Only read the Puritans, only read John Owen, only read blah, blah, blah. So I read them all, right? And I read them all, and then it was like a thought that dawned on me. It was like, so we're spending the majority of our study and lives basically because we're pastors and all we do is read basically, especially in that camp. So I'm reading a bunch of books from dead men who lived in a different culture, speaking to a different culture, and but it dawned on me. It was like I'm reading them and I'm like, but these guys are so relevant to their current day. They're not spending their time reading about guys 500 years before them.
They're not saying an old day. They're writing something in the modern.
They're addressing.
They want to change their culture in the modern sense.
Yeah, they're addressing their current cultural issues. And I'm reading, and it was like a light bulb moment. It's like I'm reading this guy talk about his current culture, and I'm ignoring my culture in order to read about a culture that's dead and gone and over with,
and telling my culture it's meant to facilitate into John Owen's culture,
and speaking the language of a 16th century Puritan to a 21st century congregation, and I'm like
a person who doesn't even know where the Book of Genesis is.
I'm insane.
Yes.
Oh, I'm crazy. Okay, this doesn't make sense. Like the whole point is that God put me in this generation. He didn't put me in Martin Luther's generation. He didn't put me in John Owen's generation. He put me in this generation. And that was where a shift happened. Why I'm so interested in what's going on currently in our culture, because it's like, this is the culture God placed me in. This is where he planted me. So I'm at least going to spend more time studying my culture than I do old, dead cultures. I'm not going to throw that out because there's still something to be gained from reading history. But I'm going to spend more time trying to discern my own culture because that's what's actually where we're all living in right now. That's the issues that we're dealing with. So that was like a big
what I try to do
that
I would encourage anyone who's seasoned, older, whatever it is like, here's the way I view it is I spend my most time with the younger generation, but my greatest influences are the older generation.
That's a great perspective.
So right now there's like 12 boomers who are my greatest voices. Like they're my confidants. They're the ones I get advice from. But again, not only was there also a pursuing of them to me 100%. And them understanding where I'm at. It's not when I go to them, it's not all judgment. It's this. It's like here I can do it right now. This is like the past couple. Gerald Brooks is one of my greatest mentors. July 16, want you to know how much I love you and how proud of you I am. July 10th, Adam, I miss you. Remember, not everyone wants your attention or gives you attention, wants to be your friend. Love you. Knock it out the park today, 2 weeks earlier.
Man, I wish my wife texted me like that.
Wow.
Another one. Your future is important to me. It just, that's an older, that is what he's saying to me. So you want to know when Pastor Gerald now, which he has, wants to correct me or wants to hey, Adam, I think you're being a little, I think you're trying to be of the world too much, right? And maybe I want to have an idea or something. It's like, yeah, Pastor Gerald, whatever, man, whatever you think. I don't even need to understand it, Pastor Gerald. You don't think it's good for me? I'm not going to do it.
100%.
You know, like, because there has been an investment that he's not just the investment, it's in his language, it's in his tone. And he's just one of many. Before John Chappelle went to heaven, he was one. I could go back to John Chappelle's text messages where he's telling me on Sunday, so proud of your message today. You did such a good job. And John, Uncle John, he would correct things in my life. And I would listen to it. Mr. Jerome, my wife's uncle, man, he'll tell me all he ever cares about is how much time am I spending with my kids. When I sit with him, it's all he wants to know. But he's also texting me, encouraged me, thinking about you today. His wife Delsa is listening to the podcast. Miss Delsa's texting me, you guys did such a good job today on the podcast. I listened to it. These are older figures who are pouring downward. They're the ones who I listen to the most, but I do not spend the most time with them. I only see Pastor Gerald twice a year. And the text messages are maybe once or twice a month. But the next generation, I spend the most time with because I want to disciple them. I want to pour into them. And so in the same sense for them, they are pouring downstream, but I know also them have their own young people my age who they're spending the most time with as well. They're just more taking on a mentorship approach. So I think that's how it's supposed to be, and your language matters and what you say. Yeah. So I get that from Pastor Gerald. Far be it for me to meet a 20-year-old and be like, your guys' generational problem, when Pastor Gerald's not doing that to me. So now I'm going to the next generation. I'm going, I'm so proud of you. You did a great job. We just had young adults preach messages that were all in their 20s. So proud of you guys. Good job. You're cheerleading the next generation to stay faithful, to love the Lord. And then when I see something wrong, I could come alongside. Jermaine's not in here. I wish he was because I could do it. I just texted him something this week that I was like, hey, man, I think you can improve in this area. And his response was, you're right, I'll do better. But he doing that because all the other times I'm texting him like, bro, man, Wedding Feast Music, you guys are killing it right now. I'm so proud of you. Good job with this. So good with this. So then I can hit him with, and I don't even have to say much, just, you should probably correct this next time, right?
Earn the right to criticize. You have to earn 100%, that right.
And influence and then change the direction. So if I'm meeting a younger, newer believer who maybe isn't dressed appropriately, because the scriptures talk about modesty. So modesty is not in the fabric or the style of the dress. It's in the approach and the way that it comes off. And so because in the same regard, if it's like, oh, well, you need to be modest, you could wear a sackcloth, and that same person who believes in the hat and suit would say you're dressed inappropriately for church. So to them, it has nothing to do with modesty. It has to do with the style of dress, which if you begin to major in the minors, that's a very dangerous place to go, like we've talked about. So you have to teach the young generation biblical concepts, not personal preference. Then they will begin to adopt that,
principles over preference.
Principles, PPs. Principle over preference.
Oh shoot, right? I didn't mean to say that.
Well, you're a parent, so you're allowed to say PP. But that's what it is. So if I'm talking to a young person, I'm like, well, here's what I would do, but I'm not saying you do it because my preference may be different. Right? I know. That's the way we think. But if I'm talking to a young person, I'd be like, this is how I did it. This is how I would do it. But that's a preference. What I need you to do is just grab hold to the principle, right? So when I'm talking to young couples, and I'm like, man, you should be dating, and you guys should have a certain level of intimacy in this. And they're like saying, Adam, Ashley, how do you guys do it? I'll say, well, here's how we do it. But I'm not saying that you do it the way we're doing. I'm saying you need to agree to the principle of intimacy and dating and time. And then you guys have to decide where that principle, the preference of that principle comes out. For us, it looks like this. For you guys, it may look like a little different, but the principle should stay the same.
Absolutely.
And so to me, that's what it is. And so there are young people coming into church who do not have the principle of modesty, who do not have the principle of respect, who do not have the principle of honor. But that's where we now begin to disciple them and teach them. It's not about, I don't need you to look like me next week. I don't need you to be a carbon copy of me next week. That's a preference. What I need you to do, though, is I can see your breasts on Sunday. You're going to need to cover them up.
Put a different shirt on.
Yeah. You're probably like, and not just
that
because
needs
you're
to come from a female to female.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah. And I'm using that sense of like in Chelsea's language of the woman. And then for me with a young man, it's like, bro, the jeans may be too tight, or you came from the gang culture you need to change your pants because your pants are a reflection of the culture you came from. So they may be overly baggy and they may be over this. And so you're changing on the inside, but you may have to, for your culture, you need to show a change from the outside. So I like that you only have blue shirts, but you might have to change the color of shirt, you know, to show that you're not in that culture anymore. Yep. So again, it's the principle of what you're looking. So you take young men, you take them through that. You take young women, and like, hey, mate, we may need to change some of your skirts. That doesn't mean that you can't feel beautiful. That doesn't mean that you can't love yourself. But there is a balance, and that's where you got to begin to teach the balance of what modesty is and what modesty looks like. It is in no way in a specific regard, right? And that's where people are kind of majoring in nowadays.
Yep, 100%.
So Chelsea, let me ask you this.
Not all. There's a lot of older people in our church who just love the next generation.
100%.
You know, too.
And we need you, boomers and older. We need you to stay, and we need your wisdom.
If I lost
we need
my
your
dad
wisdom,
and Gerald and all
yeah,
these guys tomorrow, I wouldn't know what to do.
Yeah,
you know?
you're
and Joel Home in my life, and you know all these other guys.
Yeah,
like,
you're the soul of our ministry. So would you say that you've turned out pretty well as far as Christianity, or did you ever have a season? I ask you because, like, do you feel like your parents did like a good job? Because we've known you since you were a kid growing up in the church. So what did your parents do to like keep you in the faith? Is there anything that you can attribute to them? Because we're thinking about legacy and our children and children, and you've always spoken positively about your upbringing, and you've stayed in the church. I don't know if you've ever had a backslidden season, have you? Yeah, so you've stayed in, so you're kind of what we all want for our kids in a sense of Christian parents, and now you're a leader in the church, and you're imparting to people, and you're gifted. So what are some takeaways from your parents, how they parented you?
Before she answered, let me see. Phil just told me one of my best friends in the world, Jeff Osborne.
Mr. Jeff Osborne is the
just
now
became
co-owner?
a co-owner of a donut spot called Painted Dough. This is unpaid advertising. But one of my best friends, he sent it. Phil just told me he sent it over to us. Wow. He's got a donut business now called Painted Dough. What's his location in Chino? Chino's his location. And so him and his wife, Nadia, I love him so much. He's been on this podcast before. Congratulations, man. He sent us some donuts. So they just came in the middle of the podcast. So thought, why not just talk about it? And they're you can't. Nice. So that one's like the little knotted ones, I guess. Oh, and these ones are like the traditional.
Ooh. Wait, are they vegan? Because I know Jeff and Nadia are vegan. Are they vegan?
I don't think they're vegan anymore. I don't think Jeff and Nadia is vegan anymore.
No way.
I could be wrong. Sorry if I'm wrong, guys, but I don't think they are.
Anyways,
donuts.
To answer your question really quickly.
I had a little snack.
To answer your question quickly, my parents, what they did well, I think, was just put me in an environment with other Christians. And my dad he grew up Catholic majority of his life, and my mom. And so when they converted to, Christianity and became non-denominational, there's a lot of things, expressions of the faith that they didn't really know because they didn't live their whole lives as just Christians, non-denominational.
It smells good.
It does smell good. So I think what my parents did was in their lack of being able to teach me certain things, or in their lack of knowledge, they put me in rooms where other people had that knowledge, which was people here at this church. That's what they did. And they were very aware, I can't give you this, but I know people who can in the church.
They brought you around great mentors.
Who are still part of my life to this day. Yeah. And there's people in the church. And in the beginning.
And they were never threatened by mentors.
No, never threatened. They loved the fact that
because some parents want their kids only to only look up to them, only be influenced by them, and they get very fidgety with. And I'm not saying like this is a person they don't know. It's a person they know that they're like, no, I don't want you to look.
Yep. They were never threatened by my mentors at a young age. And so, and in the beginning, they forced us to go to church, but once we hit a certain age, they allowed us the freedom. You choose. I think the freedom and not the forcing God down my throat allowed me the ability to really love this place.
Okay.
And so they gave me
what age were you?
Where they gave us a choice, probably like end of high school. So
like about 18, 17, 18?
About 17, 18 years old. They were like, yeah, y'all, we're going to church. If you want to come, come. If not, we'll see you later. And
that makes sense. Okay.
We're just like, yeah, so it was the freedom and the not like, I have a lot of friends whose parents forced them into religion, and then we got freedom in college. They went crazy. Our parents weren't like that. They gave us some freedom even when we were with them. And so when we were out by ourselves, we didn't act crazy. Our parents gave us some freedom, and they trusted us.
Wow.
And so, anyways, to answer your question, they put us around people in their lack, which they would identify. They put us in rooms where they weren't threatened. Other people can pour into us in the way that they couldn't. And that's why I am the way that I am today. Not just my parents, but by my mentors.
Yes. Okay. Wow. Thank you for that.
Shout out to Jack
some good lessons. Yeah.
I'm going to finish these donuts.
Let's do it.
Man, we went 2 hours today.
We went long.
I always think to myself, we're going to stop at an hour and a half, and then it never happens. So God bless everybody. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Engage with us. I think this is a great episode to leave some comments. Like, let us know what you think. You got any experience stories? If you want us to keep talking about premillennialism, post-millennial, then there's a lot of littles. Then shoot us some stuff in the comments. You have anything you want to add, Caleb?
Nope. Just keep wearing your hats.
In Jesus' name, amen.